I just realized when I go out there and date, when they ask the question, do you want kids? I have no idea what to tell them. So my question for you is, I asked one of my male friends recently, he's a musician, and I was like, hey, you decided not to have kids. I don't know what to do, and I'm about to be 36, and I need to figure this out, so I have a plan for the future.
Yeah.
And I was like, let me hear your perspective. And the reason the reason I'm confused about it and conflicted about it is because I'm very attached to this podcast, and I'm very attached to music, and I don't want to lose that. So I asked my friend, and he was like, your life is going to go completely downhill if you have kids. He's like, but I could be projecting my opinion.
Does he have kids?
No.
Okay.
So how could he know? But
yeah, that's I would have been the person that would have had opinion on this, like toward having kids before, but it's like it really does change everything. So
is it possible? I mean, you are a creative and you're still out there doing it, but you also have a wife.
Yeah.
The difference for me is I'm a woman, and I think the woman typically is the caregiver, not always. So I'm like, would this even be possible for me?
It's tough. Like it's weird. Like you have to, have to find like, do I want kids? Which it's like, it is a tough thing. Like there are some people that are like, I've known I wanted kids my whole life and never changed. Like, but then I do have some friends. I have friends that were like, we wanted kids, and then they end up hating their kids, and you're like, which is like, I shouldn't say hate their kids, but they don't like they don't like the way their life went. It's like, whereas I always knew I wanted kids, and then once I had one, I've leaned into like, it's the most fun thing ever. But it's like, I still understand. Like I have a good friend of mine, him and his wife just decided, they're like, we don't know what we want. He's 38, she's 34, 35. And she was like, well, let me freeze my eggs. Let's freeze your, it's not, I mean, I think it's expensive. So that sucks. Like there's like a big price barrier, but it's like, if you do potentially want that, cause they were like, they got married late. They were always a couple that was like, marriage is a sham. Yeah. And then all their friends got married. They've been together forever. And they're like, well, we love each other. Like, we should do this. They knew the financial benefits of it and everything. And then I'm glad that they applied that to kids too, because I think they started to see like some of our friends that were on the fence about if they wanted kids or not have them, and then it was great. So they're like, all right, well, we might want that one day.
It's so scary.
It is. It's the scariest thing ever. But then it's also like there's so much onus put on like people have to have kids, and I fully believe now, having one, that it is not for everyone. Okay. But that's a hard thing to come to. You're like, is it for me? It's unfortunately one of those things where some people don't know until they have a kid, is it for them? Oh sorry, I'm like going too deep, but it's I need to hear this. But it's like, these are the things you need to think about. But I can say from experience, and like going back to like from the creative side, you just have to find time to do the things you want to do. It's like your life does get hectic, but I'll make sure 3 days in a row that it's like I've done everything I need to do. Like the house is in order. Like I've done my day job. I can now, once my daughter's asleep, go out to an open mic and I can do this. Or it's the nice thing is like now I'm working on the balance of like still wanting to pursue stand-up comedy, but like I know these are the formidable years where I can really mess up a kid's brain if I'm not doing the right thing. So okay, now I can go off on a tangent.
No, this is therapy for me right now, because I just realized I'm going to be 36. When I go out dating, my friends who are my age told me, they're like, you're going to get that question soon because people at this age don't want to waste time. Right. And I'm like, oh my God, I better figure this out.
Well, and I think it's to be open and honest with somebody. And unfortunately, it's going to it could be a couple people don't like your answer, but like, it's not a bad thing to say, I don't know what if I want kids. Yeah. But now more than ever, you have the option to be like again, freezing eggs or adoption, whatever it is down the line. Cause you do get to that point, people don't talk about enough, where like you're in your mid 30s and everyone, there's like looming thing of like, women, there's a shelf life sometimes for if they can have kids. So
there's a character trait about me that I'm concerned heavily that this might not mix well with kids. It's gonna sound.
It's that I hate kids.
I'm gonna sound like a Nazi. I detest incompetence. Okay. Does that go away? Because you're raising an incompetent person. You need to teach them everything.
It is. I'm so
sorry. That sounds so bad.
No, it's true.
I'm impatient with people that need too much assistance.
It makes you relearn like the ways you try to teach somebody or like mold somebody. Like there are times with that where like I'll be like, why aren't you understanding this concept? And then I have to be like, oh yeah, you have only been on this earth for 3 years. You've never seen anything outside of like South Jersey and a little bit. You've traveled once. Like, I'm like, I'm still learning at 38.
Yeah.
So it's weird. Like, I have to like constantly remind myself. And then it's just like finding like a structure. Like, all right, well, here's the end result of how I want my kid to be. What do I have to do to get to that point? So like now we're dealing with like, I constantly ask my daughter, I'm like, you even listening to me? And she goes, uh-huh. And then I'm like, repeat back what I said. And she's like, what? And then that like makes me so pissed off. And I'm like, all right, well, clearly I wasn't communicating clearly enough, or I wasn't eliminating outside, distractions. But it's like, I see that in her and I'm like, oh, that's me too. Like,
I hope so. If I do have kids, I hope that it makes me become more patient with them, because I don't want to ruin them and make them hate themselves, because I'm constantly like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it is. It's like you learn to like, there are times where I'm like, I've been trying to put her to bed for an hour, and it's like, and I know it's like, look, if you just lay down, you're going to fall asleep, but there's a fight, and I have like a book, and I'm like, I could throw this book through the wall right now and get some of this frustration out. I was like, and then that'll forever be in her mind. So it's like you start to think more of like before you do something, before you blow up. Good thing, then. So it is. It 100% makes you reassess how you do everything. So it's like, I will say giving up drinking lent to having a kid a lot, because it's like
you had the patience and the mental stability.
And I do the mornings with her. My wife's a teacher. She goes to school pretty early. So like I have the benefit of my day job doesn't start till a certain time, so I can take her to daycare and do all the morning stuff. And it's like doing that hungover on top of like, why aren't you listening to me? Yes, this waffle has blueberries in it. I know you don't like blueberries on a Wednesday. Like,
or all the questions they ask. Like sometimes that gets a bit much.
But then they also hit you with ones that like melt your heart.
Deep, yeah.
So it's like, oh, that's the other thing too. It is unlocked my emotions. Like the softer side, especially having a girl, I think has like unlocked the softer side of like my day to day. So that's been pretty cool. Like you do learn cool stuff about yourself like that. You're like, oh man, like I have a way different idea of compassion now than I did before, kind of thing. So it's weird. It's a weird roller coaster. But yeah, it's a constant battle of like, the things I'm doing, are they going to mold who she is? And then you're like, all right, well, if that's the case, then I just need to focus on being a better me. And then if I'm doing that right enough, it'll help her become better, kind of thing. Right.
Okay. No, this makes me feel better. I think so. When I do date people pretty soon, I'm waiting till I move
Send them this clip. That's the perfect thing. You're like, actually, I'm going to send you a clip right now. I'm going to go to the bathroom. You watch it and I'll come back. If you're still here, we can continue the date.
That's another thing. I'm a podcaster, so anybody who I'm dating, they can just know about me. But that's not a bad thing.
That's pretty cool.
They'll know if they like me.
Right. It's gonna help you, talking about steps. It's gonna help you skip some steps probably. Like some, it's gonna escalate.
Like, hey, I want to get to know you before we take it to the next level. I'm just like, listen to this footage. You'll get to know me.
You're like episodes 12, 15, and 19. You'll know everything you need to know about me.
No. Okay. So after talking to you, I feel a little better because one, I'm just gonna be honest and tell people I'm trying to figure that out.
That's all. And I mean, really, it's always funny because like my wife and I have some friends that are in their early to mid 30s that are dating or have been dating somebody for like 2 years. All their other friends are married or have kids, and they've moved to that next thing. So like they'll ask for advice, and it's like we're also the worst people to ask for advice. Like I've been with my wife for 13 years, like married for 6, I think. Yeah, I should know that next month. So it's like I'm the worst person to ask for advice. In some sense, you know what I mean? But then it's like, who do you go to? It's all trial and error. It's stand-up comedy. It's like, you're going to go out there, you're going to bomb on dates. You're going to say something where you're like, I'm going to give my time back to the room and I'm just going to leave this date. But it's like, you're also going to go on ones where you're like, oh man, that breezed by. We didn't, there was no speed bumps in it. He must have watched episode 12, 15, and 19.
I feel like as a female, it's going to be hard for me to date people being a podcaster because I feel like my conversational skills are...
You're going to show up with a spiral ring notebook and you're like, before we order, this episode is brought to you by...
I feel like I've definitely increased my conversational skills because this is episode 122. I've had a lot of conversations now. So I feel like I'd be a pro at it now. I'm the female, so I kind of want to see what the male could do. So it's going to be hard for me to deal with awkward silences and not step in.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's the thing. It's like, how to handle Like, all right, well, I don't like where this conversation's going. Let me steer in another direction.
I want to see what he could do.
And he's like, no. I'm going to keep talking about my taxidermy collection. You're like, all right, well.
All right.
That is fun, though. But then I also go back to, like, the comedy brain of it. And it's like, you're going to have a whole new just plethora of things to talk about and think about in podcast. Like, you do. It's weird, but it sucks. But it's like, you are going to do that now. Like, I constantly am trying to find, like, new things or say yes to like a weird scenario to be like, maybe this will be a bit like this could lead to something, and then it's just me in an awkward situation. I'm like, there's nothing funny in this. Like, how do I get out?
I think I'm gonna have fun dating because I'm relatively new to Philadelphia. I've only lived here for 6 months, and a lot of the first 6 months I've lived here is me like trying to get my finances together. So I haven't really gone out and done anything. So it's going to be nice to have an excuse to try different restaurants and try different things, because I haven't I've explored a little bit of the city, but not.
And there's so much of it too. Like, that's you just hop over and pocket. You're like, all right, now I need to date a guy down in South Philly that knows about the Italian market. All right, I'll swing over. I need to find somebody. Maybe I'll go on a date in West Philly and try out. That is nice. And
they'll probably pay. Like,
that's the plus side of it.
But I'm not one of those women who are going to go out there with that. Because there are women out there who are like, I can't eat this week. Let me go on a date.
See, that's the thing. It's like, I think you're set up a little bit nicer because you're going into the talent pool, if you will. Like, with like, it seems like an open mind of like, I don't know what I want, so I'm going to figure out along the way.
Yeah.
Where like there are some people that I've known, and it's sad to see like the standards drop off year after year, where they're like, I need to find a guy that makes this much money. He has to be this tall. He has to have this type of family life and this. And it's like, yeah, we all want that ideal person, but it's like, how boring is it to find the person that has everything you want? It's like, you get to go out there and like recreate. You're like, shit, I don't even know who my type is.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting.
The only standard I have right now is that I have to be attracted to them.
Which is like, people will neglect that, but it's like, it's a huge part of it.
And no smokers. No smokers. I have to be attracted to them. That's like, there's other things too, but it's not that. Like, they got to have this job. They got to have this.
But it's like, everybody has their like, there's what, probably, I'm terrible at math. How many people live in Philadelphia? Like, there's thousands and thousands of single people. You need to find out some way to eliminate that.
Yeah.
I was watching, it was a terrible rom-com movie where my wife fell asleep like 3 minutes in. I watched the whole thing, and they broke it down perfectly, where she like dumped out, I think it was like peanuts on a bar, and she was like, this is New York City. And she was like, she pushed half away. She's like, that's everyone married. Yeah. And then she pushed like another half of what was left her away. She's like, that's everyone that isn't into what I am. Like, that's everyone that doesn't find me attractive. Then this is this. And then she's like, and then this is guys that have drinking problems. This is this. And then it goes down to like one person. You're like, yeah, if you're setting it out to that one person, you're never going to find that peanut. But it's like, then that's the whole, I think that in the end of the movie, it's like, you're my peanut was the stupid line. I can't remember the name of the movie. It was so terrible, but it was a good cast. But it's like, if you look at it that way, yeah, you might find that one ideal person. It's like, or I might like cashews. I don't fucking know. Like, the nice thing is like, you're in that juncture where you're like, I can figure it out all anew.
Only one other standard: no cat allergies. I love my cats, and I will never get rid of them.
I'll tell you what.
No cat allergies.
The amount that I do to overcome a cat allergy to like,
you have cat
we
allergies,
have two.
And your wife has a cat.
We have 2 cats. It's not even my wife has a cat. I took one in early on when we were dating. We found one outside of my wife's grandmom's house at Christmas, and I was like, this is a Hallmark movie. We're taking this cat in. Free cat. Ended up being like thousands of dollars in vet bills because she had all, but we loved her. And then we took on another one, and then the past like year, it's been destroying me to the point where like, I'm waking up in the middle of the night, like I can't breathe. I have to hit an inhaler in the middle of the night. And I went to a doctor, and he's like, well, do you let the cats in your bedroom? And I was like, yeah, we leave all the doors open. He's like, stop doing that.
Did it fix it?
We stopped doing it, and I'm totally fine.
Oh God. I got so scared because you're telling me I could date someone who gets a cat allergy. That's a nightmare.
No, I've had one my whole life. Okay. It exacerbated because it was like the accumulation of hair and everything. Now I have like a weird OCD obsession of cleaning up cat hair to the point where I'm like, I'll double dose Claritin D.
And does your wife love cats?
She loves, like, and I like them now too. Like, I love our cats. I was always a dog person growing up. Got cats in my late 20s, and like, they're cool. I like them. Still want to have a dog one day, but like, it's been interesting. Like, I have a constant addiction to Claritin D now, which is funny. Like if
Do
you
you
ever,
need some? I have 2 cats.
no, I'm good. I took mine this morning. I know if I go
You've
a
seen
day
my
without
stories
it,
where I have the cats, so you
Yeah.
came prepared.
but no, it's like they're like my drug dealer now. To the point where you're limited. You can only buy X amount of pseudoephedrine in it.
Yeah.
I get cut off all the time. I go to the pharmacy every 2 months. They're like, you bought it too recently. And I'm like, you got to give me the goods. So then I have to send my wife to get me Claritin. But it's like, it's a weird thing where it's like, all right, we could get rid of these cats. She loves them. I love them. My daughter now loves them. So it's like, I'll just figure it out. They're not going to be around forever.
Yeah.
I'll take Claritin for 10 more years.
Yeah, no, for me, it's either got to be that, like someone who's willing to work around it, or it's not happening because I'm so attached to my cats.
Which it's like, especially if you're finding someone like a guy in their early mid 30s, late 30s, like they got to be flexible and stuff too. It's like, so you can be honest with people about that and be like, look, this is a steadfast rule. If you hate cats, we're probably not going to work out.
I will. If we have kids in a family and you decide you don't like my cats, it's a divorce for me.
If you don't like the kids, whatever, but the cats.
Yeah. All right. I don't want to hold you hostage, and I do have to go to work soon, so I only have 2 more questions for you. Oh, okay. Interesting. You are a Philly-based comedian, but you live on the border of Philly and Jersey on the Jersey side. Yeah. Why did you choose to live in Jersey over Philly is my question.
I was born and raised in New Jersey. I still I regret never having lived in Philly. So born and raised in Jersey, literally on the Delaware River, the town I lived in, you could see the airport. They would take off over our house. So I was just associated with Philadelphia, especially sports or anytime you're going to anything entertainment, you're going over to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I moved out to Harrisburg for 3 years. That's where I started comedy. And when I moved back, luckily, I knew South Jersey was essentially just the back pocket of Philadelphia. I know I can get over, especially where I live now, I can get into Center City in 12 minutes to go to a show. So it's to live over there, I still, it's weird. I always try to word this. I regret not living in the city, but I'm glad I didn't. I'm very glad I'm not raising a family in the city, just because I have friends that I see now. I'm like, your kid hasn't seen grass in 2 weeks, which Philly is. But that being said, Philly's a great city to raise a kid. It's not like you're in Detroit and there's nothing to do, which now Detroit's I think good too. So there's cities wherever they are, but it's Philly would be a great city. But now we have the benefit of I'm 10 minutes from my parents and my mom, my in-laws are down there. We can take our daughter over. We take her into Philly all the time to show her. That's the thing my parents didn't do enough of. We never went into Philadelphia outside of going to a baseball game down in South Philly or maybe going to some event in Center City. But we'll just take her over randomly and just walk around and show her this is another thing. And we're also only 12 minutes from it. So take advantage of this when you're older. But New Jersey's pretty great too.
I love living in the city for those reasons, that you can just see such interesting things. This is going to lose subscribers, but I'm a Jordan Peterson fan, and I saw he was performing at the Met, and I'm like, that's that was I took an Uber and it was 10 minutes. I'm like, I can go, instead of sitting in my room and watching him on YouTube, I can go see him do a live lecture in person. I was going to ShopRite. That's crazy.
It is a good,
that's so insane.
It's nice to have that. And the good thing about Philly is you can live right outside of it and still be close. I always say it, everyone in Philadelphia hates it, but it's the town I live in is a suburb of Philadelphia. I can see the skyline. If you were to look at, a map of New York, I live closer to Philadelphia than some people that are I'm a New Yorker, live to anything remotely New York City.
Brooklyn might be farther than, because I think Brooklyn's a 40-minute train ride.
Right.
I work near where you live, and I take the train over there, and it's really not that far of a train ride.
No, it's not. And it's until now, it's funny because there's been a mass exodus out of Philly. Post-COVID, we've seen a lot of people that moved into our town are coming from Philly, because it's you still can get, I grew up in a town further south, 20 minutes south, that was more rural. There's farms around there. It was a little more spaced out, but it's I grew up with everyone that looked, sounded, and acted like me. Whereas now where I live, I think it's just the closer you get to a city, you learn to all right, well, this is a plethora of people now. So you still get that a little bit in our town, where it's all right, I'm interacting with all different types of people from different backgrounds. Whereas like friends of mine that still live in the town we grew up in, it's like they're hanging out with the people we grew up with. So it's like to get away from that is nice. And the closer you go to a city, the more options you have of that. I feel
One thing I've noticed coming from New Jersey into Philadelphia is everyone calls Jersey dirty Jersey, but I never realized how clean Jersey was
until you lived in Philly.
Yeah, I was like, why do they call this dirty Jersey?
Yeah,
because the second I don't have a car right now because it got stolen in Philadelphia. So I'm constantly lugging things around and gear, like music gear. I'm in Philadelphia. I just look like a normal person. Like that's just like, I mean, there's people with shopping carts, homeless people.
Oh yeah.
The second I walked into Jersey off the train with all my gear and my stuff, people looked at me like I was a creature. Like they're like,
yeah, you're
what
the weirdo coming
like
over.
I'm a bag lady or something.
You're the person I'm warning my kids about. I'm like, stay away from Philly.
Yeah, they're like, what the? And I'm in Philly, there's just garbage all over the. Well, I mean, not in all the parts, but
no, yeah, but Philly's so crazy because it is a place where you can 3 blocks away from another spot looks totally different. So like, and that is good and bad. Like you get to experience a bunch of different stuff, but it's like now what's interesting is Philly is like the bad stuff is happening in the good areas, which is like what all of like our parents' generation, like my mom still refers to it as like, I don't go into the city. Like, oh, we don't go into the city at night. And I'm like, it's so quiet when you go over there, but then it'll be like somebody was stabbed in Rittenhouse Square and you're like, but that's where all the money is.
Yeah,
like,
it happened. That type of stuff does happen at night. It's funny you said that you can see so many things there. You can steal this as a bit if you want for your comedy, because I don't know if I told you I don't do stand-up anymore
at all.
So some of my listeners know there was a competing time constraint between music and comedy.
Okay,
and I finally got to, and podcasting I'm not getting rid of. I love podcasting.
Yeah.
I've invested so much into it. Comedy and music, I couldn't get better at each of them. I kept finding that I would invest time into comedy and lose my skills as a musician and then be like, oh, I got to do that. And
because then you didn't cross over the two also, right?
Well,
or did you?
Now, everyone asked me, do you want to be a musical comedian? No, I don't. I don't like that. I do like Bo Burnham, but he's the only one I like. I don't like any of the other ones. Well, there's some that I like, but it's just not my passion. I don't want to do it. I like stand-up and I like music, and that's it. I just got a gig. I've done these gigs before, but I got another one coming in June in Philly. I'm really excited about it. I'm just going to play piano on the stage as the people set up, and it's a paid opportunity.
Okay.
And I'm like, I've done those gigs before. Like, Kill Tony.
Yeah.
They have musicians.
Yeah.
I've done gigs like that before, and I'm like, to me, that would be the perfect way for me to blend the two crafts, because I don't want to do musical comedy, but I would love to be a part of the comedy scene.
Right.
Podcasting allows me to do that because I interview comedians, but that I'm like, I want to do more of this, of like seeing musicians live on stage doing music as the comedians walk up, that type of thing.
There is like a great niche for that, because there's so much comedy now. It's like that's something that sets out, like even like a little bar show. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I did that one where the girl plays piano when you come up, and it's like everyone gets into it. It's like, oh, that is different, or it's like, I got a great clip out of that, or whatever it is. It's like, and then all of a sudden that gets a lot of the attention. So I think it is a good.
It's good, and I've done it with musical comedians. Do you know Josh Adam Myers?
Yeah.
I did a gig with him, and that was really awesome. So he's not, I guess you could say he's a musical
You can't really say what, it's like weird to.
He doesn't perform music himself, but he always has a musician on demand.
Yeah.
And he'll just randomly point, and he's strict too. He'll point at you and he'll be like, when I point at you, you start. Like,
right.
and I'm not saying he's a mean guy. I'm just saying he has.
No, but it's like he knows
what he wants. He'll just point at you and be like, play, that's a signal to play, and you just have to start playing, and he'll improvise over your.
And that's the thing, is like he's good enough to go off of what you're. It's like Todd Glass is the same way too. Like you bring someone on the road with him.
Yeah.
And the more you work with them, like that guy, I'm sure it's just like they're in sync on stuff where he sees that opportunity. But yeah, the fact that he actually does point to you is huge. Yeah. Instead of somebody that's just like, you're like, oh shit, all right, I wasn't listening.
Yeah, no, he does that. That's his gig. That's his gimmick. That makes it sound like less. I don't mean gimmick. That's his thing.
That's his little bit he does.
Yeah, that's what he does, and he's very successful with it. And I'm not his regular person, but he needed a sub.
Okay.
And because I had done some of these comedy shows where I was just playing playing piano. Somehow my name got in the business is that I was a musical comedian, and he got someone to call. Someone found me.
That's the awesome thing is like it's as big as like some of these comedians are. It's still a small network where it's like you're only one call away from the guy who's arguably one of the higher tiered people doing musical comedy or whatever it is. Like that's the interesting thing. It's like it really makes the world small where you're like, oh, okay, it's not impossible to pursue.
I feel like we got off track. I was explaining why I was a musical comedian, but it was in response to another question, and now I can't remember what it was. I don't remember either. It's all right. We got off track.
Tell us in the comments, where did we lose
track? Because I was like, I don't do comedy anymore, and I brought it up for a specific reason, and now it's.
But that's good though, because it's like now you have a working knowledge of comedy. Like it's to have that because it's like, and then now you can think of how to apply music to that. And like you said, you have a potential route, or something else could come up, but having that muscle, like having done it, is still there. Like I still always try to think of that, like how can I cross everything I know about baseball and now the thing I love, like how can I merge those two together, because it's all in the back of my head. I have a working knowledge of how guys get through like minor league systems and how that shit works. That serves me no purpose, but unless I can find a way to link it with comedy. So
I think you should definitely try to do it, or like link it with your podcast, because it doesn't hurt,
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just an avenue. That's one of the things that you want to explore too, is like the good thing about doing a podcast with somebody else is we now like have at least created a small fan base, but it's like the two of us can put out individual stuff. That's going to go to the fan base, but it can still be under that umbrella of like, and you see that like some podcasts will have on the Patreon, it's, hey, come cook with just one of the guys on the podcast, or this guy's going to learn how to play guitar, follow his thing. So like there's always those options, which is nice.
I have a comedian friend from Central Jersey who he ended up being a wine sommelier. Do you know what that is? He used to be a stand-up comedian, and he actually does this for a living, and he makes money doing it. He's still a sommelier, but he also gets these corporate comedy gigs.
Okay.
Where all his jokes are about like making fun of people who drink wine and like calling them snobs and stuff, and they love it.
There's
like,
a market for everything.
He actually like has, granted it's not the same as being like a Mark Norman. He's kind of in this niche, so it might not be for everybody, but he found a way to make it work, and he's making money doing it.
And that's the thing. It's like if people in that, you think it's like people that drink wine like spending money. Yeah. They're looking for entertainment. Why not combine all these things?
Yeah, and they relate to it, and he just kind of makes fun of them.
Yeah,
you can make fun of baseball players. You could do stand up just for baseball teams.
I would love it so much. There's these guys, Country Club Adjacent. They're a golf, like podcast golf brand, if you will, and they have this big thing called the Back Off Challenge, where they'll show up at an event, and it's now like they're invited to go to them, but they'll just talk shit on people while they're teeing off to see if they can get them to break. So they'll roast them. They'll be like, I can't believe you matched that shirt with that stomach, or like something like that. And then like the guy will be like, all right, you got me. And it's become this huge thing. It's like there is an avenue for that for baseball. Yeah. There's something there. It's just I need to figure out how to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
It's basically I need to go to men's league baseball games on Sunday mornings and make fun of people until somebody from the Phillies sees it. Like, which is depressing, but it could lead to something. So
yeah, no, it could. I definitely, that's a big goal of mine, to continue pitching myself as a musician for comedy events. I just got one.
You already got my gears going. I'm like, there is like so many different places it could be placed in, and it makes a thing stand out. So
yeah, and I get to interact with comedians, and some of them, like, because I've done this before where they have me play music as the people walk in, just so it's an ambience, that it's not just silence, and it's nice that it's a live musician. What they'll have me do is just sit on stage, and if the comedian happens to want me to do something, they'll just kind of point at me.
Just be at the ready.
And it's fun. It's fun. Like some people will be like, hey, you, and they'll like roast me. They'll be like, what are you doing with that little piano? Like they'll just, talk shit to me. And then someone will be like, hey, can you play like a blues? And I'm a good improviser. So if they just name some genre, I'll be like, okay. And I'll just improvise it, and I could do it. So I just,
that's the good thing is like you're versatile. And then the people that are doing that, like they appreciate someone that can make their act better.
Yeah.
And if it's the ones that are making money, they're never shy. Like I feel like those kind of people are never shy to be like, I'll toss a bunch of money at you, and you know what I mean? Like then it's like you start to see the financial benefit.
That's another thing I noticed too, is that a lot of comedy shows don't have a large budget. I'm sure you know that. So a lot of the times they'll only pay me, they don't pay as much as a normal music gig, like a restaurant would pay me.
Right.
But the tips are good. Like by the time they'll pass around a tip bucket, and people are so drunk and having so much fun. And I'm a female, that helps too. They'll just, I'm like, wow, like I made like 200 in tips. I'm like, there it is. And I don't do as much as I would normally do at a restaurant gig. Like when you get hired for a restaurant gig, you get paid a lot because you're expected to play for 3 hours straight.
Right. You're nonstop.
Here I'm playing for 30 minutes as I set up, and maybe I'm doing a little bit when the comedian wants to.
And you're having fun.
I'm having fun.
It's a thing you like.
And networking with comedians.
Yeah.
Like I've gotten into green rooms with like comedians that I'm like, oh my God, I never.
Oh, that's the biggest thing too. It's like, because there's so many times you hear of a comedian, they took somebody on the road as a feature or something. You're like, how'd you guys click? And you're like, I don't know. We just talked and I was a normal person. And they were like, cool. I want to have a normal person do this with me that understands what I'm going for. So yeah, that's huge.
do you know Joe List?
Yeah.
His wife was on my podcast, and that was from a music gig.
Yeah.
I played piano. I opened up for her playing piano, and then I got to meet her, and I was like,
Sarah Tolomash, right?
Tolomash. Yeah. I was like, let me get her on the podcast, and I did.
And that's the thing too. It's like you realize how small the sphere is.
Yeah.
Just because like you're a person, like there's not a lot of people that have musical talent that can go in multiple directions and no comedy. You know what I mean? Like that, we were talking about finding that peanut. It's like that whittles it down with like, there's probably
someone needs me to do the job.
Right. There's probably 100 comedians that can play guitar and piano.
Yeah.
There's probably 50 that can do it in multiple genres. There's 5 that can do it well. Like, and then it's like, there's 2 that actually know the scene. So, and then you also think 2 of the biggest comedy clubs in the world, the Store in LA and the Cellar in New York, both have live piano players sitting next to the stage. And that's been something that's been since the beginning of comedy. You had to have it.
That's my dream career.
Yeah.
And I would like to make it happen in Philly if it's a possibility. But
it is, because there's enough big comedy, and like people refer to Philly as a great comedy city.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like, if you got in with a Helium or with Punchline or something like that and offered that, again, it sets them apart. It makes, the possibilities
I should just offer
are
to do it. I should just pitch to do it for free at some events and see if they'll like, and then like, if I'm like, hey, can I do it free for a couple months? And if it works out, work out a payment or something. Yeah,
it's always just asking until you get a no. That's it. Yeah. You're like, all right, well, I'll go somewhere else. Like,
yeah. All right.
Sorry, I got the gears going too much.
Sometimes I forget that I'm being recorded and I just like trail off into thought. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a show.
It is what the daydream. You're like, yes, one day I will be paid to play piano at a comedy club.
Yeah. Okay. One more question. Oh, it's such a strange transition. I always like to include some type of like philosophical type question. This is something I'm toying around with in my head lately. I think you're a nice person. Do you ever find that being a kind human being has the downside of attracting people who take advantage of that? And how do you deal with that if that's the case? Yeah.
It's weird. Like I kind of had, my day job is in sales, so I have to like fake niceness a lot. And I see how that, the more I fake it, the more it brings in the type of person I don't want to work with. Yeah. So like, it is nice. It's a weird thing of like, I finally have realized like, I know the type of person I want to interact with, and I know, how I want to pursue it. So it's like, if the person doesn't fit that mold of like, I'm like, I can write people off very easily now, which is a weird skill. I think the pandemic like made me look at that, where I was like, oh, I interact with 20 people really in the world. I can cut out the other 8 billion or whatever it is. Like, it's, I think just cutting somebody out if it's not, I don't know if that answers the question really.
You're good at saying, okay, I know who to accept and who not to.
Yeah. In my life. And constantly reassessing that too. That's the thing I've realized too. Like the more I age is like just constantly reassessing like my idea of something.
The reason I bring it up is because I've been noticing lately having to be more strict with people, because on my podcast, I try to set out a vibe of vulnerability and openness. That's why I ask a lot of personal questions on here. As a result, I get some crazy people who then want to send me questions and stuff, and they'll if I don't answer them, they'll throw it at me. I thought you were nice. I thought you were inspiring. And I'm just like, okay, I want to be nice and inspiring, but there's got to be a limit of how much of my time can be taken up.
Right. Well, that's people get like too, and I do it too. Like I listen to. Do you have any
stalkers for?
No, I've had like weird scenarios where somebody's like, I've seen everything you've ever put out. And I'm like, wow, how are you not on my radar? Like, how have I not seen your name on Instagram or like something? So that's been weird. Like, and if it is like, doing content that doesn't go out on a page that I manage, like that's been kind of cool to see that. But then it's like, you also have to understand that like, you're not going to always get back like the ideal person. Again, it goes back to the peanut thing. It's like, I have an image of the person that is like my fan in my head, and it's pretty much me not doing comedy. But it's like, then I meet that person, I'm like, you're fucking weird. And I'm like, I'm weird.
Do you have a type of person you attract to your shows?
I don't know, because I don't think I draw anybody, yet. Like, I'm still at that point where like I'm doing every show I possibly can to try to build my audience. And I have some friends in comedy that have built their audience, like Drew and Naeem and Rob from Deer Egg and Deer Tech. Like, they've built like a core audience. Yeah. We had them on our Shock Drop show. There was a guy that came in from like Michigan to come see them in Philly, and he just hung out there. Like, nice guy. Like, so it's interesting. They have like their niche person, so like it molds what they're gonna make content toward at that point. So it's like, I don't think I have an audience, but it's like there are shows that are a lot easier for me. Like, if I'm at a show and there's 50 people there and 40 of them are married couples, I'm like, you do well with them. I'm like, you guys are gonna relate to this material. Or if it's a bunch of like older people, it's weird. Like, people that are in my mom's age category like my stuff because it's like, my son's trying to figure out how to be a dad and also a pothead at the same time too. Like, and you're like,
you smoke?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So when you're sober, specifically,
that's most of my material. Is about how I'm like, I'm not sober. I just don't drink alcohol. Like, and it's always weird. I'm still on the fence because it's like this weird, and we can do another hour about this, but it's like the weird stigma around weed is still there, even though, especially in New Jersey, it's 100% legal.
Philly, it's still illegal.
It's still illegal, but it's like, it is. Like, I mean, you've walked or driven through Philly.
I mean, people are doing if you got arrested for smoking weed, people are open shooting fentanyl. Right. It's not there's way bigger concerns. Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is like, this is something I've tried to like figure out comedy wise, even just my brain. I never used anything like weed related, cannabis related, I'm going to say, without drinking before. So it was always like, I'm drunk, somebody's got a joint, let's go smoke. Yeah. But like, it was never just like, so it's been interesting to like explore that, like of just like a Friday night at home. All right, let's eat edibles and figure out the night, or we just go to bed. Like, so it's been interesting to figure that lane out too. No, I have no shade towards weed. I don't smoke it because it makes me incredibly paranoid. So I have issues with it where it just doesn't mix with me. And that's the thing. It's like, just like alcohol. It's like if there's a substance, there is a person it is for, and there's a person it's not for. So like, I know people that drink regularly, but like I have one drink when I go out, and then I don't, and that alcohol's for that person. Like, there's some people that's like, they should have weed. I almost think it should be flipped. I think you should give weed to people in their early 20s and then introduce them to alcohol when they hit 30. After they're chilling. Right. So especially because it's like when you're 24 and you're like, I'm going to drink 14 IPAs and nothing. I'm still going to have abs tomorrow morning. And then you're 34 and you're like, I had a half of an IPA and I need to go to the gym for a month now. None of the substances mix well with me. So I think my substance is just coffee. I don't know if that counts. We're not even getting on that. I just gave up coffee last week. I'm torturing myself at this point. Well, I shouldn't tell you what to do. Why? I was getting headaches, and I think I was having too much of a caffeine dependency. So then I switched to mushroom coffee, which I found out just has coffee in it. So it's like the same. And it's not like mushrooms, like I'm doing shrooms. It's like a blend of like turkey tail and lion's mane and all this stuff. I have too many podcast subscriptions now is basically the answer. And I was like, oh, I've heard of this thing. Let me try it. Yeah. So I'm just trying to experiment with new things to like, all right, let's see how my brain reacts to not doing coffee anymore. Yeah. Maybe I can find something fun. Again, it goes back to comedy. Can I find something funny out of it? I'll keep doing it. Coffee's my drug. If you said everybody gets their drug, coffee's mine. I tried giving it up. I did cut back on it because I used to drink like nearly a pot of it a day. You need a 12-step program for coffee. First, it's admitting I have an addiction. Yeah. But what I did now is I try to drink a glass of water before my first cup of coffee. I try to eat just a small something. Yeah. And I reduced the intake a lot. And now I'm actually fine. Well, it made me, I traveled my job I was at recently. I just left it last year, but I got the privilege again to go to Austria 3 times in 1 year. Oh, wow. So I got to experience a different culture's interaction with coffee, and I was like, oh, we're doing it wrong. Like, this stuff should be in smaller portions. It shouldn't be in a fucking Wawa to go cup this big. And I was getting too much into that where I'm like, I'm at Starbucks, I might as well get the biggest option they have. Yeah. And then I'm spending, it goes back to, I think a lot of mine just goes back to like,
I'm spending on stupid stuff.
Yeah.
Now that I have one kid and another one on the way, where can I cut out
your
spending?
Money. It's funny you say that about the way other people interact with coffee. I went to Uruguay once by myself, and I had the Americanized idea of coffee, and I was trying to go get a to-go cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Every single person I went to, I was like, can I get a to-go cup of coffee? And I had to say it in Spanish because they're not like a tourist country. They're like they're like the most south of South America. They're I mean, not the most, but very, very South America. So when I went everywhere to all these different restaurants, let me get a to-go cup of coffee, they looked at me and they're like, no. And they would they're like, no, you can't. Like, they were like, you're not doing that.
And God forbid you ask for an iced coffee too.
Yeah. And then
that was the other thing I realized.
They always gave me a cup of seltzer on the side everywhere I went. And I'm like, I don't want this. And they're like, take it. And I'm like, I didn't understand the tradition. Like, you get your coffee, you have to sit down, you do not take it to go. It's like rude to them. They're
right.
Like, they're like, that's disgusting.
They respect the ritual of it.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. And I didn't realize that till, again, never been to Europe. I went over there, and like the coffee machine like only made 6 ounces, was like the most it made.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you guys do? Like, make 7 of these and put them in your big Yeti? They're like, what the f is a Yeti? And you're like, oh, right. All right.
I eventually found a coffee machine, and that was my go-to. It was at like a convenience store, and they all looked at me like, nobody buys this.
Yeah, like this is dog.
But I wanted to walk around with my cup of coffee and like sightsee, and nobody got it. I had to. It was like torture to me. I was like, "What are you're forcing me to just sit there? That's not American."
Yeah, I want my freedom and my beans. Let me get out of here.
All right, so I'm gonna end the podcast there, even though I could probably go on for another hour because this conversation's been great.
Especially.
But yeah, let's coffee talk. Let's go make up. No, I have to. Yeah, I got to go to work very soon.
Hey,
so
back to work.
just for the listeners, I'm gonna include a link below if you live in the Philly area, or not if you just want to hear his podcast and you don't live in the Philly area and you like his vibe and his personality. I'm going to leave a link to his Instagram below. Is there anything you want to tell them, share with them?
No, if you are in the Philly, South Jersey area, check out Shock Drop Comedy. We're going to do it every 2 months. I think it's at the same place, Scores Sneaker Boutique. It's a weird thing that's working very well. The guys that run it are really cool.
Where is that? In Jersey?
Yeah, it's right in Jersey, not far from where I live. So it's nice. Score Sneaker Boutique. We're just gonna keep trying to bring some of the best Philly, South Jersey comedians to like a local scene, and then eventually try to bring some bigger New York names. So to do that, we need people to come out consistently. So we promise you, we'll give you, if there's 7 comics, 5 guaranteed are going to be incredible.
Wow.
2 are going to be friends of ours that we love.
I'm not, as I was saying before, I'm not a comedian anymore, but I want to be a part of the scene and support. So
and who knows? Maybe a piano player coming to Shock Drop. Who knows?
Oh my God.
We can discuss.
Would be so awesome. Okay.
Again, we can't pay.
Well, I'll put a tip jar out.
Yeah.
Definitely come, people. I'll be there.
I'm playing no matter what, whether you want it or not.
Okay, so that's it. Pranzata Podcast, episode 122. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please don't forget to hit subscribe. Speaking of making money, I need to start making money on this channel because this has been episode 122 and I'm still doing it for free. And I'm not doing this out of greed. I'm doing this because I want to continue doing this, and getting this podcast monetized would make that all possible. I'm so close to 1,000. I'm so close to making money on this podcast. You just have to hit subscribe. And I could tell from the algorithm, or not the algorithm, I could tell from the analytics that people listen to the podcast regularly and they're just too lazy to hit subscribe. I can see it.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those people,
you've been getting,
I know
you're
who you
a freeloader. You've been getting free entertainment for 122 episodes. It stops now.
By the way, I get it though, because I do the same exact
100%.
thing. There's YouTubers I listen to where the algorithm keeps sending me their videos, so I don't even have to subscribe. But I'll make it a commitment to stop doing that too. So stop doing that today. If you listen to this podcast and you like this podcast and you're doing dishes and you're too lazy, your hands are wet, please take this moment to hook it up and hit subscribe. All right? That's it. Episode 122. Have a good day, guys. Bye.